So greetings, now here before you is a close-up look at the necklace that used to belong to Egil Thorsson. Now, if you don't know who Egil Thorsson is, he is the former and the late and great channel host of the channel, and he is very much missed by many people. But before you see Egil's favourite necklace. Egil, or Simon, in the real world, he always wore a Thor's hammer around his neck, and he had a silver Thor's hammer. But when he was reenacting as a Viking or a Norse warrior, he would wear this, and he's had this for many years. Now, I remember Egil telling me when he made this in the mid-1990s. So this necklace is over 30 years old, which is quite astonishing, really, in my mind, in reenactment terms, because a lot of people don't own kit for that long. And just to give it some comparison to size, here you can see an average man's ring of silver, and you can see the necklace around it. Now, this is only going to be an introductory look at the necklace. I will at some point make a much more detailed and longer video, as I like the idea of going into some of these lovely items in a much more in-depth way. But today we're going to just have a quick look at the necklace and talk about some of the symbolism around it. Now, first of all, we have one big problem with this necklace when it comes to being authentic, because when it came to Norse men and warriors, they very seldom wore Thor's hammers, and they very seldom would wear necklaces with this amount of beads. In fact, if you was a Norse warrior and you was married, your wife would be wearing this, and not you fundamentally as a man. And most necklaces that have been found, or the remains of, generally will have a Thor's hammer, and they may have one or two beads, because beads in the medieval times, especially when they was harder to buy and it took more time to make and more skill, were classed as a semi-precious stone. So they say in the medieval times that one bead, depending on the style and the shape and the amount of work involved, is worth roughly a month's wages. And I would probably say that's true with the plain beads. Now, the beads that have the inclusions and the more decoration, the lines, for instance, like these beads here and these beads with the decoration, they will probably be a little bit more expensive because they will take more time and skill to make. So a bead fundamentally could be worth a few months' wages, depending on the decoration and also the colour, because some colours were very difficult to make and manufacture and were more sorely sought after. So how many beads are there on this necklace? Well, without actually calculating, which I will do in a minute, I would say there's roughly 20 to 26 beads on here. Let's say 24. So let's count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Now we have the remains of a broken bead, and this basically shows the fact that beads do over time break on your necklace. And I actually wonder whether this bead is not actually a part of this bead and has somehow moved up. And I think at some point I will untie this and replace this bead to make it back up to 30 again. And yeah, you know, necklaces break, the cord doesn't last forever. So one tip I do recommend, if you wear a Thor's hammer and you have it attached on a leather cord, don't take it into the shower or bath with it, because it will gradually rot the cord away. And that is when a cord starts to develop weakness, and that is when a cord will break. And the last thing you want when you're away on a battle reenactment is to lose all your beads. Because these days, you know, some of these beads will be £5 to £10 easily for one bead. So there is quite a bit of value and worth of money when it comes to setting like something like this up, because it's not something like you can go and buy. So fundamentally, within this necklace, you're probably looking between £200 to £300. Buy the beads, to buy the silver, because all these items are silver. So again, it's demonstrating Egil's wealth as a Viking. He's got the typical Thor's hammer, which is a very nice design. And at some point I may cast some of these. And he also has, by the side of them, Hugin and Mugin, the two birds or ravens of Odin, memory and thought. He then has the typical triangular style pattern, and it has a kind of a runic symbol inside of it because of the pattern. And I know this has a name, but I can never, for the love of all the money in the world, remember the name. And here we also have a pendant, which I think is one of the copies of the beast symbolisms, one of the crosses from Derby, which is giving a local connection. It then has what we would call a hagstone. Now, a hagstone is a stone with a natural hole, or a hole that's been drilled in it. This one is probably been drilled, and a hagstone is there to ward away the evil spirits, and generally comes in much later than the Norse and the Vikings, but yet, as warriors and people, we've been picking up stones for an awful long time. And then we have a nice bit of slate, which I think could be Welsh or maybe from Yorkshire, and it has 2 runes on it. And again, in a much further detail and a much longer video, we will talk about the runes, which I believe represent his initials. So yes, this is a very colourful necklace. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why is there so many beads on a necklace when authentically we should have no more than 2? Because during the 90s and the 2000s and probably back in the 1980s, when you was reenacting with your friends, there was always people trying to buy better trousers, to have the longest and shiniest sword. Oh, I've got the best axe. So there became a competition between people to have the most beaded necklace you could have. So this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of old reenactors have so many beads on a necklace, because they're competing with their fellow reenactors, and it's a bit of an in-joke. But what do you think? Let's turn this around. You can see the reverse side of it. So I hope you're liking these up-close videos, because I have the advantage of owning and having so many items of historical, Norse and medieval context. I can make a lot of these videos. So there's a few things to look at here on the back and the reverse of the necklace. Of course, the beads still look the same, but you'll notice how the Thor's hammer generally has a plain back, and there's no runic inscriptions. Some modern manufacturers will put a rune of their mark or the maker's mark in the back, but whether that's authentic, I don't know. I don't think that's fundamentally the case, because when people were manufacturing things back in the medieval times, you were probably more concerned about making some money and some coin rather than going around leaving your mark on all the items you make. Yes, maybe if you become sort of a legendary manufacturer of swords, you may have your sword or your name branded, or the place you come from branded into the swords, a bit like the Ulfbert swords. So in this case, this is plain. But like I said, I've seen examples from the modern world, and they will have a runic, a couple of runes to represent the maker. And again, on this symbolism with the triangles, and I've always find this to be a fascinating symbol, and perhaps we'll do another video. It still has some marking that's a little bit clearer on the back than it is on the front, probably because of the fact that it's been aged and worn, and it could do with a polish, but I just don't really want to polish these. And again, on the 2 ravens, they're plain as well, because when you're wearing a piece of jewellery and the only thing you're going to see is the front of it, you don't need to fundamentally, have it so that it's decorated on the back. And another interesting thing I've noticed about this Thor's hammer is that it's actually twisted. So you can see, hopefully, and my camera focuses, you can see how the twist goes this way. Interesting. I think that must have been from use somewhere. Perhaps at some point it's been knocked but in combat, and therefore it has been slightly bent. And you can slightly see it when it's sitting on this wooden table. And I love the bees. I love the oranges. Lovely colour. Lovely deep orange. Again, these little green beads of glass with little blue and white inclusions of lovely. I love the glass blue beads because they're transparent. You can see through them slightly. And again, back to 2 more orange. We then have this symbolism here, but there's nothing on this side. Oh no, we have this one on this side. So this is where we are, trying to keep it balanced. Egil then changed his mind and had a blue and green bead. He probably only had one of each, so decided to do that. And again, he's changed from a long blue bead to a more decorated yellow-white bead. Then we have 2 round black beads, one with white lines and the other a little bit more rustic with red lines. He's then put 2 more of these elongated beads. One's longer on this side again, so it's not uniformal. Again, it's trying to go for uniformal, kind of a disc type of glass bead on this one. And he's finished off with a few more beads, a hagstone and his runestone, and it looks like an old copper mail link. So again, I think this is spectacular, but what do you think? Is there any questions or anything, any insights into this item which you could tell me about? Because I don't know it all. So until we meet again, thank you for watching this video. I think you guys are awesome, and we'll see you in the next video.